We've heard from so many wonderful storytellers, and there's so much to weed through when you're in the world of politics. No one has done it better than our next award recipient, Andy Hiller. Please watch.
America was born after a violent revolution. Yesterday, there was a peaceful revolution. Today, we're in new political territory, impossible for many to understand or accept. For months, we were told Donald Trump couldn't possibly win. But what Trump delivered yesterday was a political IED, an improvised explosive device that blew up Clinton, the Democratic Party, and conventional wisdom all at once. What now? We have a president-elect who millions of Americans think is unsuitable and unworthy of the office. We have a president-elect intent on erasing the two major accomplishments of the current president, Obamacare and the Iran nuke deal. We have one president-elect and two Americas, maybe more, which is why today it's fair to ask, who are we? What exactly does the United States stand for? How can we come together? If we're going to, then here's something we need. Consent of the governed, all the governed. If we stay divided, we'll fall. Will we survive? We'll see. The reality show has become reality. I'm Andy Hiller, and that's my instinct.
Wise words from a very wise man. To present the award is a man you see nightly on WHDH-TV, Channel 7 News. Please welcome Adam Williams.
Thank you, Jordan. And if everyone is okay with it, I'd like to quickly take just a moment to talk about one other person many of you might know, Al McNaughton, who was a news photographer at Channel 7 for 55 years. Al passed away this week, and it's been a great loss for all of us at Channel 7 and for his friends and family and many of you here today. So we honor Al in spirit as he transcends into the peaceful hands of God. Let's give Al another round of applause. I just want to point out the video you just saw of Andy. That was his last appearance on Channel 7, and I suspect he might elaborate a little more on that reality show example he gave us. So stand by for that. But just a thank you for including me in today's event. I have to be honest that I feel like kind of a young punk after following in some of the inductees and the introducers before so many legends and movers and shakers. In our ever-changing and rapidly changing industry. To be with you is quite a delight. I'm also here to talk about some people who have shaped, reshaped, or maybe even escaped this business. And one of those escapees here is Andy Hiller. And I wanted to shed some light on his contribution not only to political journalism, but also talk about the influence he's had on me and so many others. When I came to Boston almost 13 years ago, I remember sitting with our champion news director, Linda Mealy, sitting with her in her office, and Andy sort of sweeps in and says, "Hi, I'm Andy. Who are you?" in typical Andy sort of fashion. We've been friends since then, and I should also say that Andy's grit and his resilience especially stood out to me back in 2008. I was only up here for about a year, and I was assigned to cover the late Senator John McCain, presidential candidate, on his journey through New Hampshire, when Scott McEachran, who was our then assignment manager, who kind of headed the program up there, pointed me up to Andy, and he said, "Go to him and see which questions do you need to ask McCain." And I did, and it was helpful. He helped me with some questions for a sit-down interview with Joe Kennedy after he was elected to Congress. He gave my co-anchor Kim Casey some questions to ask Senator Elizabeth Warren. Those questions didn't go so well, but we can talk about that a little later. Every 4 years up in Manchester, you know, we would realize that Andy was more than an engine that could, who would sometimes huff and puff his way through really the epicenter of our political news coverage at Channel 7. Every 4 years, he'd hole himself up in a hotel room. It was a suite. Half of it was his room, I think, and the other half was a makeshift studio. He walked around with, poll numbers up to his ears, going over data, hot, old copy, whatever it took to keep him going, and he did it. And so when I was directed to ask him these questions, back to this little story, I was struck by how this calm came over Andy, and he was able to say, pull up a chair and help me out and take the time and gave me the attention. And I saw him do the very same thing with so many of my other colleagues. When his Hiller Instinct piece would come on our news, we would always listen like we didn't listen to other stories. We'd tell producers, don't talk to us in our ears. Kim and I, like, we got to hear this, because it was that good. Nobody said it like Andy. And our viewers recognized that as well over the years. Andy is a role model for myself and maybe for some of you, for his children, his family. And I'll tell you, just to wrap it up, why I consider Andy a role model. It's because Andy is a critical thinker. He's an astute observer, and he's an important voice. Let the voice go on. It's my pleasure to introduce Andy Hiller.
Thank you so much. Thanks. Geez, I haven't done a noon live shot in a long, long time, and I hope there's no one at Adam's table that has a lie detector. I'm going to enjoy this more than I should. My first job as a reporter in 1971 was at the Davenport, Iowa Times-Democrat, where an editor told me that when someone asked him where he worked, he just said, "The Times." And left it at that. And now, if anybody asks me if I've ever achieved anything, I'm just going to say, yeah, I'm in the Hall of Fame. I want to thank anyone and everyone who had anything to do with this. I want to thank Linda Mealy, my old news director, who said to me, tell me something I don't know, and I think she doesn't know that sometimes I thought of her as my older sister, sometimes I thought of her as my younger sister, and at the craziest times, I thought of her as my twin. I want to say thanks to two of the people who were here, Ted Carey and Mike Bodo. They are producers. Sometimes in the morning, I would say, can you imagine this? And then they would work all day, and they would do it. They would do the work, and I would get the credit. And that's the truth. I want to say thanks to my wife, who's not here. She's somewhere else. Couldn't be here today, because the truth is, without her, everybody who knows me knows, I would have a BMW and a stereo, and it'd be an old BMW, and the stereo wouldn't even have Bluetooth. And I want to thank my son Ben for coming, and his wife Laura for coming. And I also want to apologize to anyone along the way who I offended or said something to that was untoward. I would like you to know that you are not alone. You are not alone, and sometimes when I look back and I think of some of the things I did and I said, I cringe. It's true. Okay, the speech part. The biggest change in political news coverage on TV, on cable, on screens, digitally, on your device, however you see it, the biggest change I saw in political news coverage was how we deal with different opinions and issues, controversial issues. In the old days, there was actually something called the fairness doctrine, which required us to be honest, equitable, and balanced. That meant no political story could only have one side. Now the fairness doctrine is gone, and so is our reputation for fairness. We fool ourselves when we say we're the glue that holds society together. Actually, we're lighter fluid. We inflame more than inform, and at our worst, we spread hate. In fact, that is the business model of most political news on cable. And who do you think cable TV execs want to win the election next year? We went from respected referees to partisan advocates. We went from working in the public interest to working in our own special interest. And it is dangerous, because what holds us together more than anything are words, an agreement about what each word means. Our rule of law depends on a rule of words. That's why words matter. But what if they don't? It's like the tree that fell in the forest. Did it make a sound if no one heard it? Too many people today never hear opposing political views. To them, those views don't exist. The only words they hear reinforce the views they already have, until each side literally speaks its own language and can't understand the other. We are approaching words don't matter. Finally, pause for applause. Election day next year isn't the most important day in our lives. It's the day after. Whichever side wins, I think there will be resistance and civil disobedience, and that the National Guard will be needed. At that point, it will be soldiers versus citizens. The news media will magnify and distort, and the public interest will be on its own. Thank you very much for tolerating me.